He needed me that night. You would have understood if you trusted me, she said after spending the night at her ex's apartment on our anniversary. I didn't respond, just went to the bedroom and started packing. Found the ring box I'd hidden in my drawer, put it in my pocket. She saw it from the doorway, went pale. I walked past her and left. I didn't yell or slam anything or ask for her phone because by the time those words left her mouth, something in me had already gone quiet and still, the kind of stillness that comes right before a building is condemned. When inspectors stopped arguing and just taped the notice to the door, and it was barely past 8 on a Sunday morning when my girlfriend of 3 years, Emily, stepped into our apartment smelling like last night, and excuses, not the clean, sterile smell of a hospital hallway, or the burnt coffee and antiseptic smell of a crisis waiting room, but old beer, synthetic cologne I recognized immediately, and that slightly sour note of someone who stayed up too late pretending the couch was an innocent place to fall asleep, and I was sitting on the edge of the bed fully dressed in the same clothes I'd worn to the restaurant we never made it to, the jacket still hanging on the chair where I'd left it, the table in the living room, still set with 2 candles I'd lit and blown out, alone, wax hardened like tiny white headstones. And when she dropped her keys in the bowl by the door, the sound cracked through the apartment louder than it should have, like the punctuation mark at the end of a sentence you already know is finished. And she didn't even look at me at first, just kicked off her shoes and rubbed her face the way she always did when she wanted sympathy without explanation, saying God I'm exhausted like she just pulled a double shift, saving lives instead of spending the night with Aaron, the ex she swore was just someone who needed help. And she headed toward the kitchen, expecting me to follow, expecting me to ask if she was okay, expecting the script to play out the way it always had. And when I had moved, she stopped, turned slowly, and that was when she noticed the candles and the unopened bottle of wine, and the look on my face that wasn't angry or pleading or confused, but settled, and she sighed in that irritated way that told me she'd already decided I was going to be difficult, saying, please don't do this. And I asked her calmly what this was, and she launched into it right away, explaining that Aaron had been spiraling, that he called her late, that he was in a really dark place, that she was scared he might hurt himself, and she couldn't live with herself if something happened, and she hadn't gone over, and she said all of this like it was a shield she expected me to respect, simply because it sounded noble, and I asked her if she called emergency services, if she really thought he was in danger, and the way she froze told me everything before she even said no, before she said she wasn't going to call the cops on him because he just needed someone. And that was when I stood up and walked closer and caught the smell properly, the cologne he always wore because he thought it made him interesting, layered over cheap alcohol. And I said out loud that she smelled like a bar, and her face flushed red in that way people do when they realize their body has betrayed their story. And she said they'd had a drink to calm his nerves, watched a movie, fallen asleep. Nothing happened. And then she snapped and said I was being insecure, that I should trust her, that I was making it into something ugly when it was really about compassion. And that sentence, the one about trust, landed like a verdict, because trust isn't something you demand when you come home smelling like another man. Trust is something you protect when it matters. And instead of arguing, I turned and went to the bedroom while she followed me, incredulous now, laughing a little, saying I was being dramatic, and I pulled my suitcase down from the closet shelf and opened on the bed. And she said my name in that warning tone she used when she wanted control back. And I opened the drawer where I'd hidden the ring box under old T-shirts and hiking socks. The one I'd driven 2 hours to buy because I wanted to cut just right. The one I'd planned to slide across the table after dessert last night. And when I took it out and turned, she was standing in the doorway with her hands on her hips mid-speech until she saw the box and everything drain out her face. So fast, it was almost frightening, like watching someone realize they're standing on the wrong side of a closing door. And she whispered my name like it was a question, like she was hoping there was still time to rewrite the scene. And I didn't open the box or say anything about it. I just slipped it into my pocket because it was mine and always had been. And I packed enough clothes for a few days, my laptop, my charger, and my toothbrush, zipped the bag, and she started to panic for real then, tears forming, hands reaching for my arm, saying she didn't know, saying she never would have gone if she'd known, saying she'd tell Aaron to disappear forever if that's what it took. And I paused just long enough to look at her and say quietly that she shouldn't have needed a ring to know where she belonged. And then I walked past her, out the door and down the stairs without running or looking back. And when I got into my car, I didn't turn on the radio. because silence felt right, like the kind of silence that lets something heal instead of fester. And I checked into a hotel a few miles away because it was neutral ground, and I sat on the edge of the bed, watching my phone light up over and over with her name until it felt ridiculous. The messages, cycling through apology and anger and bargaining in a way that would have been almost academic if it hadn't been my life. And by the second day, her friends started calling, telling me I was cruel, telling me she was devastated, telling me I was throwing away something good over a misunderstanding. And I told one of them calmly that coming home from another man's apartment on our anniversary was a misunderstanding. It was a choice. And after that, I stopped answering. And the quiet that followed was strange and heavy, and also incredibly relieving, like taking off a backpack you didn't realize had been digging into your shoulders for years. And I went to work and focused on spreadsheets and deadlines, because numbers don't argue with you about your feelings. And a few weeks later, when I went back to the apartment to get the rest of my things that already looked different, messier, louder somehow, and my neighbor casually mentioned that Emily had company a lot now, that a guy with a loud car had been parking in my spot, and I felt a flash of something like sadness followed immediately by relief, because it wasn't my responsibility anymore. And over the next few months, mutual. Friends filled in the gaps without me asking, telling me that once I was gone, Emily expected Aaron to step into the role I played, to be stable and present and helpful, and that he didn't, that he borrowed money, slept late, complained when asked to contribute, and eventually cheated on her with someone younger and less complicated. And when I heard that, I didn't feel triumph or satisfaction, just confirmation, like a hypothesis proven. And by then I'd already sold the ring and used the money to move into a smaller place that felt more like me, clean and quiet and undecorated by compromise. And I'd met someone new, Hannah, who didn't test me or disappear or make me feel like stability was a flaw. And months later, I ran into Emily in a furniture store while I was picking out a couch. And she looked smaller somehow, less certain. And she tried to talk, tried to apologize, tried to tell me she'd learned. And I listened politely because I wasn't angry anymore. And when she asked if there was any chance to start over, I told her the truth, that I didn't hate her, that I didn't even think about her much, but that I trusted myself now, and that trust had led me somewhere peaceful. And when I walked out of that store into the evening air, I realized that the moment she'd seen that ring box wasn't the end of something I lost. It was the beginning of something I finally stopped giving away. And the quiet that followed me home felt earned, solid, and entirely my own.